Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the COVID series that we have here at the Center for Professional Selling at Ball State University. I am your host, Deva Rangarajan, and today we have a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about the concept of customer success, a kind of a profession that is solely dedicated to help your customers succeed. And to talk about what this is and also to talk about some important things happening in that domain, we actually have Ms. Irit Eizips, who is the Chief Customer Officer and CEO of CSM Practice, a consulting organization in the Bay Area that actually works with a lot of companies that have CS teams in terms of training them, upskilling them, or doing assessment of their customer success strategies. So CSM stands for Customer Success Management. So Irit, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me, Deva. Pleasure to be here.
Irit, I reached out to you. Of course, we've talked in the past, but I reached out to you specifically because you had this really cool infographic that you came up with, something that I'm not very good at, but you had this fantastic infographic that talks about how 12 steps to level up your customer success strategy. So especially during COVID times, I think I forgot that part, especially during COVID times. And I was looking at it and I was like nodding my head when I was seeing a lot of those things that were so obvious, but till you put it on paper, you don't have something to go by. You cannot put a finger on it. So I love this idea of this infographic, but let me ask you this question before we get into CS. You talk about it during COVID times, but to what extent are some of the practices, which we'll discuss in detail, just relevant for COVID times, or are they going to be relevant moving forward as well, post-COVID?
Some of the things in those tips are relevant for, COVID times and post-COVID times.
Yeah.
When you look at the research, most of the research firms out there, they actually anticipate that the ramification of this 2-3 months of halting work, halting new business for some of us, not all of us, will actually, especially subscription-based businesses, will have an impact for at least a year or two, with even more tremendous impact if some of the customer success managers are being let go. And I believe that the infographic would be especially important for those to follow, for those who, either have the impact themselves as a negative or have customers that have been negatively impacted. The businesses are going to recover slowly, not immediately. So it's important to just shift the strategy of how we deal with existing customers. And I think right now it's even more important than ever before. But if you look at the 12 steps, some of them would be relevant for this period where the impact is still very much in place. And some of them would just be important things to look at as your strategy for handling customers on an ongoing basis, regardless of the pandemic impact on our businesses.
Indeed. It's good that you mentioned your infographic. So for those of you interested, you should be seeing the link to the infographic somewhere about right now at the bottom of your screen. So before we get into that aspect of infographics, let's talk about the concept of customer success. This is something that I know that for people in the subscription-based business models, they have known this idea of customer success managers. Now, tell us a little bit more about why they are important, and maybe extrapolate, I'm putting you on the spot here, is to say, do normal firms, which do not necessarily have a subscription-based model, do you think they could also benefit from having customer success managers?
Yeah, absolutely. We have customer success managers, and I think services companies are definitely an industry where you can find customer success managers being very effective. Membership companies definitely benefit from a member success manager and so on. And I believe I'm getting more and more requests from industries where they actually sell hardware, but the maintenance is actually a recurring service for those firms. So for those companies that they work with their customers. So anybody that expects to have a repeat business with their customer base should consider customer success as a function and as a methodology to embrace for their company. So customer success is not just having a team of customer success managers, it's really a cross-functional organization-wide strategy that any CEO or COO should look into adopting.
Indeed. It's fantastic because it's great, because that's one of the things I've been telling all along. Because unlike you, for whom customer success is what you do on a daily basis, I mostly deal with sales organizations, and I tell them that if you are in the repeat order business, do not take your customers for granted. Actually having a profile, don't call them customer success managers, but embody the methodology and the function of customer success, and you're more likely to take a huge burden of your sales team to go back and constantly keep tabs and let the salespeople go out there and try to bring in new business. And that, for me, is what I really like about your answer. And I'm glad that you're also getting these responses from a lot of the hardware companies looking into this. So we have the customer success managers. And of course, if you could just very briefly say, what are the different things that a customer success manager does from your experience?
Yeah, of course. So, a customer success manager is a typical function in a SaaS company, technology companies, where you have a subscription-based model. As you mentioned, it might have different titles when you go off to other industries, but that's a different discussion. When we look at customer success managers' roles, the main role is about making customers successful. It's a very customer-centric type of position. What they do really depends on the business model as well. Some companies have a wide range of customer base, meaning some very large customers and a very small base customer that's very wide with a lot of companies in that cohort of clients. They might have different customer engagement models, and depending on which customer engagement model the customer success manager is associated with, their day-to-day job is going to be very different in how they interact with customers. Meaning, the larger the customer, the more in touch points they're going to have with them.
Indeed.
And then the smaller the customers, the less touch point and more one-to-many programs that they're going to launch. But at the end of the day, it's all about one, bringing to light what kind of value that they could have with our organization, increase the partnership value. So beyond the usage of the product or the solution, really enhance the value that we get out of the partnership and the relationship they have with our organization. And then prove that value. So it's about increasing awareness to value, potential value, as well as realizing that value.
I love this part, because one of the things which I really took away from, not just because we've had a conversation in the past as well, is that one of the things that you talk about is, if the CS manager, the customer success manager, is responsible for the success of the customer, one of the things which we find when we talk about services is always the customer also has to play a role in creating value for themselves. And one of the things which I've come across, which is what I really like, is one of the points in your infographic, is this concept of the health score, which is very interesting because we talk about it in sales, but not with a very specific term, health score. So tell us a little bit more about what is a health score and why is it such an important score for a customer success manager?
Yeah, as opposed to sales, look, sales are going to be commissioned on actual value that they bring from the customer. And we don't really have a function to bring customer to or prove value to the customer. And that's really the function of customer success managers, to work in tandem with the sales team. So how do we know if a customer is healthy or not? At the very rudimentary basic level, you will see a lot of companies have a health score that just says, do we think that they're going to renew or not? They tell us that they don't want to renew or not. And that's a very, very basic level of just saying red, yellow, green. I think, more sophisticated customer success teams actually look at the health of a customer from different perspectives. They would look at, do we have the right relationship with them? Are they taking enough action and accountability for their own success? And then lastly, are they, if it's a SaaS solution, they might take a look at usage trends, adoption trends. Are they adopting sticky and differentiating features? Because if they don't, even though they use the solution, we're a commodity at that point, because anybody can actually walk into the procurement manager's office and pitch their solution. And if they don't really leverage our differentiating features, given a different proposal, they might actually go and disconnect. That's disconnect from our services and go to a competitor. And that's really the change that SaaS brings about. Everything is on the cloud. It's much easier to disconnect and reconnect to another solution. And the role of the CSM is to look at that health score from the different perspective to tell us, are we genuinely working with the customer to teach them how to be accountable for their own success, increase value on an ongoing basis? Do we have the right relationship set up with them? And are they adopting enough features and functions and services that we offer to really maximize value for them?
Fantastic. I guess a lot of companies can learn from this, not necessarily just from CES companies as well. So let me ask you this. In the infographics that you have, one of the earlier points that you mentioned is that you need to revisit your health score. So tell me about, what do you mean revisit? So why should I revisit? Is it specifically because of COVID? Or would you actually say that technically, actually, you should be doing it periodically to see what is happening? COVID is just one reason why you might want to do it.
That's a good point, Deva. I'll admittedly say that when I wrote the blog, it was about, hey, stop looking at your health scores, because listen, in regular times, what are we looking at a health score? What is the usage trend? Well, if they're not in the office and your solution is catered to be used when they are in the office and they can't use it when they're remote, then it's not going to tell you a lot of things, because it's a temporary thing. You need to look at other things. For example, we might also look at account engagement. Customer engagement has completely changed during the pandemic. There were a slew of requests that would normally not be submitted from customers on a regular cadence. So because they're a lot more engaged or a lot less engaged or refusing to do QBRs with us, does it really suggest whether or not they're going to renew with us or they're maximizing value with us? I don't think so, not during COVID. And that's, I said, just let's put the regular health score aside. And when you are in a crisis, and that would be true, like after COVID, if a company is going through an M&A, a merger and acquisition, or the executive has changed or something significant changed with their customer, maybe your health score doesn't suggest the same things as before. So you might want to revisit that as well. And then outside of COVID in general, a lot of times highly sophisticated customer success teams set up a health score to not only gauge what is the customer's health, but also to give a guideline for the customer success managers as to what to focus on from a strategic standpoint for their customers. So let's say I'm a CCO, a Chief Customer Officer, and I wanted to elevate the relationship that we have for all our customers. I might put in, and maybe like I'm a very high touch, meaning like I mostly have just strategic accounts. I might put in the scorecard or the health score, different attributes related to relationship, like what level we're in, what's the level of engagement, because I think that's something that the team can work on. But over time, if we got it, right, we set up the processes, the software, the policies to get that, and we nail it every time, does it behoove me to have that as part of the health score if it's always green? Probably not. I would want to revisit it. If we launched a new product, if we launched a new service, if something drastically happened with our business model, we acquired a different company, whatnot, or something changed in the market, maybe I should revisit my health score as well. So those are the things where you would revisit your health score in general. But during COVID, definitely set it aside and start looking at other things.
Which is actually the next point that you also make, right? That is set aside not just health score, but also other CS metrics, because this is a very unique time. And you cannot hold yourself, or you cannot beat yourself too much saying, oh my God, we didn't do a good job. Maybe it's just a situation right now, and we should not put that much stress even on our CS managers, because one of the things that we cannot stress enough about is when you get all these slew of either customers refusing to respond to your CS managers, or the other side, they just dump everything on the CS managers. There's a lot of stress that your CS managers are coping with.
Right.
not to mention that maybe a lot of them are being let go. So now more work comes on one or two poor individuals because they're taking on more loads. So I really like this idea that is, you talk about revisit your health score, that's got to do with your customers and what we're doing with them, but be much more gentle as well with your CS folks and set aside and take, I love the word hiatus on CS metrics, because that is what we are actually telling a lot of sales managers, is that not say take completely let go, but actually take a little bit of a foot off the pedal and let them breathe and let them actually do the kind of things that you want them to be doing. That is, take a breath, go to your customers, rethink new ways by which you can actually help them out. I'm not talking about sales, but I can easily draw parallels here as well. Huh? So I really
Yeah.
love it. I love your hiatus. I love that. I said, you know what? That's a beautiful word. I should be copying that a lot more. So tell me, do you want to say something more about typical? Why should they be taking hiatus from CS metrics?
I'll give you just a simple example for a
Yeah.
low touch type of engagement model with customers where, typically each CSM might have
Mm.
tens of customers or hundreds of customers. If they're still on the hook to do QBRs or certain activities, a lot of times companies would say, hey, you need to do this activity this number of times with this so-and-so customers or each one of your
Mm.
customers. I think during COVID, that doesn't make sense.
Mm.
Um, you actually don't want them to do maybe, those business reviews with
Yeah.
customers. Maybe instead you would just send them an email with a recap of the, executive summary that you would typically do in a QBR, which is something that one of my colleagues mentioned in a conversation that I had with them. This is what they do. So they don't really hold the CSMs accountable. If their bonus is related or their target goal is to have a QBR with each large customer every quarter, they kind of put it aside and really say, listen, let's not do that. Let's do something different that's more aligned with what our customers want to do right now or what their capacity is like right now. And instead, call them up, ask them how they're doing, ask them how their family's doing, create those connections. Another company I heard actually took their entire sales team and they launched a campaign where they reached out to all their prospects and say, hey, look, just have a conversation with our sales team. It's not a sales conversation. It's really about what our company can do to help you specifically. Maybe your job is in jeopardy. These contacts, sometimes they do move to another job. They can bring you to their next job. Or if you are staying with your company, what can we do to help you close some deals, to help you introduced into other accounts, or just whatever we need to, right? To just make your life easier right now. And a lot of them actually did connect with their sales team. And this is all it was about. And one of I heard it from one of their prospects who told me, listen, do you think that when I'm on the market to actually purchase their software, their type of software, they're I will, fight to get theirs because they're the one who proactively reached out during COVID to help me out regardless. And they didn't talk about selling me a software. They talked about helping me.
Which is wonderful. I love this example that you give, because we talk about that in some of the other people who've talked about, is how you look at new ways of developing value propositions to your customers rather than the usual way of working, which also means that we need to rethink our metrics. And it ties into one of the next points that you mentioned, and this is more, it has an implication downstream for the customer success managers. One of the things you do talk about is, hey, we should be looking at offering more free services to our customers, or things like payment options, or maybe even small trainings kind of stuff. And my question is that when you talk about revisit your health metrics, take a hiatus from your CS metrics, offer free, it is downstream, it's the CS people who will be affected by it. But now what you're talking about is actually have a much more of a customer centric strategy as an organization. And then, of course, if I do that, then let us start talking about helping our CS do the kind of things. Am I right in understanding this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the strategy overall should change. We need to revisit, first of all, segmentize our accounts,
Yeah.
and really think which cohort of our customers got hit more than others. If we serve multiple industries, we already know which industries
Yes.
have, done better than others. if we have just this one industry, I can tell you full-heartedly that smaller businesses got hit more than the enterprise and larger businesses, which have the cash flow and the cash reserves they need to, stay afloat. So for those reasons, it's definitely an organization-wide strategy that
exactly
needs to
right.
be changed. And this is not on the shoulders of the CSM. In fact, I will have you know that most CEOs have actually taken the time to revisit this, worked with their CCO or VP customer success to re-strategize on segmentation, have a very solid policy about what to do when a customer struggles to pay or really just doesn't have the liquidity to continue to pay for a subscription if their renewal comes up during these next 2 or 3 months. Some companies didn't really realize what would be the full impact of COVID on their business, and they won't know until the end of the quarter when all the renewals for this quarter are due. We don't know. And so these requests for cash flow relief might still come in Q2, and we should embrace for that. I think most of them have already happened. In terms of the free services and such, yes, most of these comments have actually related to specifically what can we do when we do get asks for cash relief. And even if we get a request for to churn, what can we do to really understand what is the reason for the churn request, the cancellation request, and what can we offer to extend just to see, whether we can still save that account. In terms of free services, I think there was another point in the infographic that really talked about, look, we need to be customer centric right now. There's a lot of people, a lot of teams that might have their job in jeopardy, that might need to switch over to work remote. And now they're switching over back to working in the office, and there might be some health concerns and issues. Some of the customers that I work with have actually set up Slack channels for all the executives that are from their customer base to just talk to one another about these strategies. And they are holding these online sessions to have people connect with one another and feel like a sense of community, because they can't go to work and talk to one another. And even if they did, there's just a slew of new things that we never had to deal with before.
Indeed. Yeah, and I think that's what I really like about the infographic is the fact that, yes, you can go with the numbers of the infographics, but it all boils down to the strategy and what is it that we want to do, because then the other things are then how do we then go about it? If this is the strategy we want to do, then what is going to be the role of the CS in deploying that strategy? And that's what I really like about this. Now, one of the things which, of course, I also liked is that you of course, make change to your strategy and you say maybe rethink or look at your subscription model. One of the things you say is that, so essentially, what made you say this? Why would I want to think about my subscription model? Are you saying that I should completely rethink it and then pass on the complete responsibility to my customer? Or are you saying maybe it's the subscription model, but different service levels in them? So what do you specifically mean by that?
Yeah, all of the above. We see companies actually change. They change their offering. The main trend that we're seeing right now is both services and technology companies offer more agile offerings in general. So they might extend their payment offering. They might extend, how they do the contracts, different bite size of contracts, especially for new business deals. Can you just imagine? Everybody's still nervous. You might end up having, if before you mandated a 3-year contract, now you might mandate a 1 year or a runway of 3 months proof of concept, and then a longer term contract, just to help people, go through this period. And I think anybody that's responsible for that should look into, realistically, what would companies actually have an appetite for? And we need to be very flexible around that.
Which is what I think it tied it all nicely when you say you need to work with a certain amount of social responsibility. I really like how you tie it together, because in other businesses they talk about sustainability, but sustainability comes in so many forms. And what I really like is, hey, if I'm a tech-based, subscription-based model, I'm already doing a lot to the environment by not polluting or things like that. But what does social responsibility mean? What does it mean for me to treat my customers? So what made you actually have this in your infographic specifically? You know what I mean? This specific point on social responsibility.
It's about our customers as well as our employees, by the way, Deva.
Mm,
It's not
mm,
just extended to the
good
customers,
point.
but also to the
Indeed.
CSMs and to the employees. You know, if you think about what has happened and transpired since mid-March, there's a lot of people that still have job security issues, budget concerns. There's a lot of like unknown that's going on right now. Our social responsibility is to not just sell them a product and make sure that they use it at this point. It's really making sure that they're okay. And whatever we can do to alleviate the tension, the stress, by either offering even like information on industry trends, best practices, anything that we can do to help to make them feel more confident as they go through this period, that's social responsibility. We can't be about, you know, like very righteous and about just the product and the features and the usage. It has to go beyond to that really like people success.
Indeed. And I think that's pretty much what I really liked about this infographic. So if I were to summarize from putting myself in your shoes, trying to understand what Irit was thinking, there were 12 points that you mentioned, but the 5 ones which for me resonated very much was the fact is that, first of all, act with social responsibility. This is my order. The next is really rethink your customer-centric strategy. See what I mean? Take a look at what is my strategy, how am I going to be taking care of my customers. Take a look at like including offering free services. Rethink your service offering and your subscription models. Then the customer success folks who have to deploy it, make sure that yes, there are KPIs for them. You need to take a look at certain CS metrics. But the idea is that in line with the metrics should be in line with the new focus we're going to take during these difficult times, including taking a hiatus and doing new things. And the last but not the least is that, but also at the same time, make sure that you keep your eye on what's happening with your customers. Look at your health score, but at the same time, understand that don't just go in with the health score, because there could be things happening within your customer's organization, and you might have to rethink your health score and say, what should we do? And it goes back to social responsibility. If my customer is struggling, the health score might have other reasons why, and what can we do to help them? So it's a kind of a cyclical kind of thing. That's the way I see it. Am I wrong in this, or you know what I mean? So essentially, what would you add on top of what I just said, or how would you correct me if I got it wrong?
I think you nailed it. Actually, I was listening. I was like, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. I think everything needs to be very thoughtful right now and very people focused versus account focused. And I think both salespeople and customer success managers could leverage that approach. I think, you know, most CSMs and salespeople do that anyways, but we need the company to come up with policies and processes that attach to that so that they're empowered to continue to put people first, especially during these times. And I think that these times would actually be at least until the end of the year, if not in 2021, 2022, until this impact is completely over. That said, I think everybody's seeing a little bit of awakening. You know, more like the sales funnels are starting to fill up with leads, maybe not as tremendously as it did before COVID-19, but you know, there is an awakening and there is an excitement. So hopefully I am completely wrong, and in 2 months from now, everything goes back to how it was.
That's right.
But if not, I think these tips, like you mentioned, it's very thoughtful for any day where there's a little bit of a crisis, and there's some tips there that would be good to just embrace because they're very customer and people focused.
Indeed. And the way I look at it is that you just remove COVID and you put any crisis. The 12 things that you have are things that they should have. It's not that they didn't know it, but it's in one place. That's what I really like about it. Yes, it says COVID, but just like we tell a lot of sales managers is that, yes, hopefully business will pick up, but there are going to be changes in the way your customers are going to be interacting with, what they'll be expecting from you. And customers will remember those suppliers who were with them during the difficult times. And all the things that we say is, if that's what it is, that's the essence of customer centricity. So thank you so much, Irit, for that wonderful conversation. And again, as I said, it was a wonderful infographic for the others. You can wait till the end of this conversation to actually again take a look at where the infographic is. So thank you again, Irit, and then good luck with all the initiatives that you're doing as well. And hey, this folks in sales, people who are listening to this, take a look at customer success. They're doing some really cool things there as well. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next one.
Thanks, Deva.
Bye.